Alright, so this video is without prejudice and without recourse, okay? I'm going to stand on the UC 1-308, okay? I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to give legal advice. Why? Because I'm not an attorney. That's why, people. Alright. However, he is. So he can give all advices he wants, I guess. Never look straight forward. Always look around you to be able to protect yourself by any means necessary, alright? It's very necessary. Quit listening to other people. Alright? Do your own research. Govern yourself. Gather the facts to be able to protect yourself. Okay? We just keep going by hearsay all the time. The courts are directly, in all actuality, is designed for hearsay. Okay? I don't have nothing against this attorney yet, so whatever. He's one of the better ones I've out there, but you always will see some of my other videos, okay? But let's proceed forward.
One of my favorite types of cases to file are Section 1983 cases based on violations of the Fourth Amendment, specifically excessive use of force. When a police officer uses an excessive amount of force on somebody who is just walking down the street, or somebody who's had an encounter with the officer, could be somebody who is being arrested by the officer. If excessive force is used, then the Fourth Amendment can be violated. So I'm going to show you a brand new video that's never been seen before on YouTube, showing my client.
That being said, subscribe to him. He's called the Civil Rights Lawyer, okay?
Melvin Sargent, who had already had force used on him. What had happened is the police had been called to his home by a third party because they heard him having an argument with his wife. And when the police arrived, my client, who had no criminal history whatsoever, had a pistol on him. He was lawfully open carrying, as he's allowed to do in West Virginia. And as soon as he saw that law enforcement was there, he put his hands up and he turned around so that they could see that he had a pistol in a holster on his belt. And it's his allegation that he was then beaten. The video didn't start until the second part of that, when he was already in handcuffs and being placed into the patrol car. And you can see for yourself what happened. And that's the great thing about video. As the U.S. Supreme Court held in Scott versus Harris, the video controls if the police officer testimony contradicts what you see in the video. And that might be actually what happens here when you look at what the police report actually said.
What? Stop hitting him, bitch! Stop hitting him! Girl, I've known him for years.
Okay, I understand that. But he's got him control. He has got to stop.
You don't need to hit him in the face.
Stop it.
To get him under control. I know.
When someone
I can call you a bunch of state troopers if you want.
I don't care.
All right, then I will. There's no will.
We don't care who you call.
Do you know who my stepbrother is?
I don't care.
No, you don't. Because he got killed.
Come on.
He got killed on 77. Bitch, quit. Bitch, no. Bitch, please. Don't hit him like that.
Listen. When I tell him to put his hands on his head,
I understand.
and he goes to grab his back, I'm going to protect me, him,
I'm
her,
sorry.
or him.
I know.
They're
I'm
going
sorry.
to get your info. I'm taking him to the office.
Well, I know you both, you don't know my info. You both know my info.
I know. She's going to get your info.
I'm sorry. Madam.
All right, let's take a look at slow motion, the use of force that's captured on the video here. You see that my client's handcuffed. He is not assaulting the officer in any way. And then all of a sudden, boom, the deputy pushes him into the patrol car. He's still handcuffed. And you'll see that the officer then lunges in after him, and his body jerks around just like he's punching him. You can see that the client here, he's handcuffed, and there is when the push begins. And there's his glove afterwards. That's one of those weaponized Oakley gloves, I believe, and it's got my client's blood on it, right on the knuckles. And look at all the blood stains on my client's pants after he got out of jail and went to the hospital. And that's his hand that was broken because it was stomped. So let's take another look at how we got those pictures of the bloody gloves. And that's when Deputy Bish, who was the guy who had used the force against my client, walked back over to my client's wife who was filming him, and they knew each other from the past. And he's explaining why he did what he did to her, and you can see the whole time the bloody knuckles, which he probably didn't even realize at the time were there.
And she don't even touch me like that, bitch. You know who my brother-in-law is.
She don't know you.
Because you know who my brother-in-law is.
But here's the thing. She's gonna.
He's the Interstate 77 guy that got killed last year.
Sorry, I'm not listening if you say
I got it.
I'm not listening
I
to
got it.
these.
But I know them too, and I'm a good person, and I do a lot of good things.
I understand that, but when he's fighting and that's going on, I'm really not listening. Okay, I'm trying to get you back.
Is that my gun? That's my gun.
This is yours?
Yes, it's registered to me. You can go run it. That's mine. No, bitch, no. Run it, please. It's in my name, I swear. Run it. No. That's my fucking gun, though. Really? So, no, they know my info. Don't you come near me. Bitch, no. Really?
And this is where the video takes really a bizarre turn, where another deputy who wasn't involved in that use of force walks up to my client's wife who's filming and actually puts his hands around the wife's throat and decides to give her an instruction on respecting the authority and respecting the badge. Apparently the wife knew this deputy before he became a male deputy, and when he was then a female deputy, they apparently knew each other.
You're going to enter jail drinking.
All right,
I need
what,
you to
Heather?
see.
Do you see this fucking badge on her
Yes,
chest?
I do, Heather.
you know what that means? You
Yes,
respect
Heather.
it.
Yes.
You respect
Please
me.
don't touch
Listen,
me.
you respect me. Alright?
We're just trying to get an update of you guys to the TDMS for either deputies or the
I'm
other
not
person.
trying to get your attention because you're looking over
They
here.
think so, hey, right here, this time, take him out of there.
You respect her. You
Yeah,
hear me?
you
You've been
those
drinking?
pepper spray
A
juice.
little
Then I
orange
suggest
juice.
you stop.
Okay, I
You
stop.
feel me?
Yeah, I feel you. Hey, Derek, I'm sorry.
When we're talking about
I get it. I get it. I'm sorry. I guess arrest me next.
Apparently, at about the time that my client's wife was getting lectured about respecting the badge, the client is in the back of the car handcuffed, and he sees this happening with the deputy's hands going around her throat, and he starts to really freak out and scream or get upset. And then the same deputy who had used the force on him apparently opens the door and sprays him with pepper spray, then closes the car door. And that now, in this next clip, as his wife is trying to get her gun back that had been seized, you can hear my client in the background from inside the police car crying about his eyes.
When can I get it tomorrow? After he talks to us, how much he's like, where's he gonna be?
it's going to be the judge.
Where's he gonna be at?
After I get him back to the office call. Okay. Let me get him to the office and we can call.
Alright.
That's pretty much all the video shows, though there was apparently another use of force on the way to take him for processing. They had stopped the car and apparently used force on him again, even though he was handcuffed in the back of the car. But at least we have a portion of this that was caught on video. Now, after he was arrested, he ended up bonding out later and was taken immediately to the hospital by his wife. And they documented that he did have, these abrasions still on his body, and including a fractured hand from where the same deputy who used force on him actually stomped his hands. And that's why my client was asking and really begging this deputy to loosen the handcuffs when he was getting put into the car. And that's why he was sort of turning around, showing him the handcuffs, because his hand had been stomped by the deputy, and it was broken, and it was starting to swell and was really hurting. And we have photographs of of his hands where the swelling had really caused these abrasions on the handcuffs after they were put on. Here are the charges that he was charged with: 2 counts of obstructing an officer, 2 counts of battery on an officer. And here is the actual police report that was included in the criminal narrative for the charges. And you ask yourself if you see this in the video. All right, at this point, Deputy Calloway arrived on the scene, began to assist. We were able to stand Mr. Sargent on his feet as he continued to refuse to comply. We were able to secure him in the rear of my cruiser. After closing the passenger side rear door, Mr. Sargent began to kick the inside of my door, causing the door to begin to bow out. At this point, I opened the same door. It began to yell, tell Mr. Sargent to calm down and stop kicking the door, or we would spray him with OC. At this point, he leaned back and kicked towards me, striking me in the chest. At this point, I administered a short 3 to 5 second burst of pepper spray in Mr. Sargent's eyes. At this point, it appeared as Mr. Sargent had finished. Did you see that on the video? No, I didn't either, even in the parts you didn't see. Here's the ultimate plea agreement that resolved the case, is that 1 count of obstruction was dropped. He pled guilty to the other count of obstructing an officer, and both counts of battery on an officer were dropped by the prosecutor's office. And that is a really telling fact. Now that the criminal case was resolved, we can go ahead and proceed with the civil side of things. Like I said, this is basic Fourth Amendment excessive force law under the Graham factors. And I believe that just based on what you see on the video, that will be a strong enough case to get to a jury. Now, what a jury does with it is always a roll of the dice, and we'll just have to see. So stay tuned.
Alrighty, y'all. This will be the People News. Part of that, I just want to kind of do a flashback on it. Remember, when they claimed he was kicking the door, this may or may not have, allegedly, after he seen the officer, man, grabbed his wife around the throat, protecting a female officer, allegedly, and respecting the badge. So, answer me this, riddle me this, y'all. Why is a man stepping in front of a female officer to another female officer and insulting, not in front of another female officer, but a lady, and demanding respect to the badge instead of the female officer? You know, if it was serious enough, why did not the female officer engage into the lady? Riddle me that. These will be the People News. Bye, y'all.